Albert Einstein supposedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he actually said that is debated, but the reason the quote spread is simple. Compound interest is the closest thing to math that exists in math, and once you understand how it works, you can't unsee it. It explains why rich people get richer without trying, why starting to invest at 25 versus 35 changes your entire life, and why credit card debt ruins people who can technically afford the minimum payment. Most people think they understand compound interest. They heard the phrase in school, they know it has something to do with money growing over time, and they move on. But almost nobody actually feels it in their gut, which is why almost nobody uses it properly. If you're the person who never gets it until someone gives you the right analogy, this channel is for you. Subscribe. Let me start with the difference between simple interest and compound interest, because this is where most people get confused. Simple interest is like getting paid rent on a house you own. If you rent out a house for $1,000 a month, you get $1,000 every month. Not $900, not $1,100. The house doesn't grow, the rent doesn't grow, you just get the same check forever. Compound interest is like if that rent check, instead of going into your pocket, went into building another house, and then both houses paid you rent. And that rent built a third house, and now 3 houses are paying rent, which builds more houses, which pay more rent. Suddenly, you're not earning money from one house anymore. You're earning money from a neighborhood you didn't have to build. That's the entire secret. Compound interest is interest that earns interest. Your money has babies, and then the babies have babies. And eventually, the babies outnumber the original family by so much that the original investment becomes almost irrelevant. Here's the part that breaks people's brains. Compound interest looks boring for a long time, like painfully boring. For years it feels like nothing is happening, and then it explodes. Think of compound interest like a snowball rolling down a hill. At the top of the hill, the snowball is small and moving slow. You can barely see it picking up snow. 10 seconds in, it's slightly bigger but still pathetic. You start to wonder if this whole snowball thing is overrated. 30 seconds in, it's noticeable but still not impressive. But the hill keeps going. And somewhere around the 1-minute mark, the snowball is suddenly the size of a car, then a house, then a building, and by the time it reaches the bottom, it's a wall of snow wiping out a village. That's your money. For the first few years of investing, the returns look laughable. $100 a month invested feels like nothing. 5 years in, you've got a modest pile. 10 years in, it's decent. But 20, 30, 40 years in, the snowball is unrecognizable from where it started, and the vast majority of the mass came from the last stretch of the hill, not the beginning. This is why the single most important variable in investing isn't how much you invest, it's how long you let it run. A person who invests $200 a month starting at 25 ends up with way more than a person who invests $400 a month starting at 35. Same total contribution across their lives, wildly different outcomes. The difference is an extra 10 years of snowball rolling. Let me make this even more concrete with numbers. At an average 8% annual return, which is roughly what the stock market has done historically over long periods, money doubles about every 9 years. That's the rule of 72 in action. Divide 72 by your return rate, and you get roughly how many years it takes your money to double. So $1,000 invested at 25 becomes $2,000 by age 34, $4,000 by 43, $8,000 by 52, $16,000 by 61, $32,000 by 70. The same $1,000 invested at 35 only gets 4 doublings before 70 instead of 5. You lost half of the final amount by starting 10 years later. And the kicker is the last doubling is the biggest jump. Going from 16 to 32,000 is a bigger gain than the first 4 doublings combined. Quick favor before the next part, because this next section is the one that makes compound interest click for debt. Borazón, which is where it quietly destroys people. If this has been useful so far, smash the like button. It actually helps the channel more than you'd think. Back to it. Compound interest works in both directions. That's what almost nobody tells you. If compound interest is a snowball rolling downhill when you're investing, it's a snowball rolling downhill straight at you when you're in debt. The same math that builds wealth slowly and then explosively also destroys people slowly and then explosively. And credit card companies know this better than anyone. Think of credit card debt like a leak in a bucket that gets bigger over time. You owe $1,000. You pay the minimum, which is maybe $25. Of that 25, about 20 goes to interest, and only 5 actually reduces what you owe. Meanwhile, new interest is accruing on what's left. The hole in the bucket is growing faster than you're filling it, and every month you stay in that position, the hole gets slightly wider. At a typical credit card rate of 22%, a $1,000 balance paying only minimums can take over 20 years to pay off and cost you more than $2,500 in interest alone. You paid 3 times the original amount and took 2 decades to do it. Same compound math as investing, just working against you instead of for you. The lesson here is uncomfortable but important. The same force that makes investing beautiful makes debt brutal. And most people have both happening simultaneously. They're contributing $200 a month to a retirement account while carrying $5,000 in credit card debt, which means one snowball is slowly rolling toward them while another is slowly rolling away. And the one rolling toward them is usually bigger. Let me hit one more analogy because this one changes how people think about saving. Compound interest is like planting a tree. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. A tree planted today will never catch up to one planted 20 years ago, but it will absolutely dwarf one planted 20 years from now. People in their 30s and 40s sometimes feel like they missed the window. They didn't. Starting late is still infinitely better than never starting because the snowball still rolls, just down a shorter hill. The worst decision is waiting for the right time, because that decision costs you the exact thing compound interest needs most, which is time. Let me stack all of this together so it locks in. Simple interest is rent from a single house. Compound interest is rent that builds new houses that pay their own rent. The snowball rolls slowly for years and then explodes near the bottom, which is why starting early matters more than investing a lot. The rule of 72 tells you how fast money doubles. Debt is the same snowball rolling the other way, which is why minimum payments trap people for decades. And the best time to plant the tree is always today, even if the ideal time was years ago. That's compound interest. It's not complicated math, it's just math that happens to feel unnatural because humans are bad at imagining exponential growth. Once you see it, every financial decision you make looks different. If this helped you finally see how compound interest actually works, do me 2 quick favors. Hit the like button and subscribe so you catch the next one. I'm deciding between 2 topics for the next video, and I want you to pick. Should I explain how inflation actually works using a shrinking ruler analogy? Or how the stock market works using a weighing machine analogy? Drop A or B in the comments, and whichever gets more votes, I'll make first. Thanks for watching.